What's up, everybody? Today I am getting ready for a vendor market that's coming up this weekend, and so I thought I would kind of share a video about Comic Cons, conventions, videos, if they're worth it, if you should do one, basically, and hopefully you get some, ideas if it's something you want to do, and I'll give you some tips and things to look out for before committing to one. So, my name is Raj Solanki. I am an independent comic creator, and yeah, let's just jump right into it. So right now, I am going through my merchandise and stuff like that, getting ready for. We're doing a Lunar New Year market here in Waco, Texas, and so I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of share my experience with conventions, my experience with vendor markets, if I think they're worth doing, and kind of things to look out for, right? And so, first of all, kind of my backstory with conventions. My first Comic Con was in Denver in 2017, and I was not ready. I was not prepared, and I did not know what I was doing going into it. So it did not go great. And there's a lot of factors with that. But it being my first one, me not really preparing well, me not kind of knowing what the convention is like, me not going the year prior, things like that. So I'll get into that a little bit later. But that was my first convention. And then after that, I did another convention in Colorado Springs. So I used to live in Colorado, and that's kind of why I did those. And then I think I did Denver one more time, and the second time was better. And then since then, I've done smaller markets mostly. And so I wanted to talk about if it's a good idea even to do conventions and what kind of person should do conventions. So first and foremost, I think for me personally, and I think this is the wise way to go, I want to go to a convention or a vendor market or something like that if I can make a profit there, right? Like, this is a business I'm running, and first and foremost, I want to make a profit. I think a lot of artists, I think a lot of comic people that go to Comic Cons, people that table at vendor markets, go with the idea of networking, and networking is great, and I don't have any issue with networking, but I don't know if Comic Cons and markets are the place to do that. And if they are, I don't know if you actually need a table to do that. I've met lots of people at different conventions and things, and I'm not even a vendor. I just go, I'll reach out to artists I know that's going to be there. I'll reach out to friends that I know that are going to be in town, and I'll be like, hey, let's grab coffee, let's grab breakfast, stuff like that. So I want to just put that in your mind first and make sure your mentality is that you are going to a Comic-Con because you are a business. You're trying to make money. You're trying to make connections with potential customers, not necessarily to network, though networking is a plus. It should not be your sole focus. But I've made great friends at Comic Cons, again, and the years that I was a vendor. Even then, I made great connections. And so it's a balance. But first and foremost, I want y'all to think about will this convention, whichever convention you are trying to do, whichever market you're trying to do, will it bring me a profit? And so what are things to consider with profit? When I say profit, I mean net sales, not gross sales. So gross sales are all the money that you bring in, and it does not account for your expenses, like how much did these stickers cost, how much did these prints cost, how much did my comic cost to get printed, things like that. So gross doesn't take out expenses. Net sales does, and so you take the money that you bring in, that people spend, and then you subtract how much it cost to rent the booth, how much it costs to print your stickers, to ship stuff, how much did your hotel cost, how much did flying out there cost, if you're doing it out of town, things like that. So you want your net sales to be in the positive, obviously, right? So what are things to consider as expenses? So for expenses, things that I consider expenses for that particular event that I'm doing. One is the cost of tabling. How much does it cost for me to rent the booth? How much does it cost if I need my own table, my own chairs? Do I need to bring those things, or or is it provided? Those are potential costs. Unless you already own those things, then that's different. And then how much does printing all your products cost? How much does travel cost? How much will food cost? How much will hotels cost? Those are the big things, right? And there's probably, each person it'll be different for each convention. But those are the main ones: travel, food, merchandise, cost of booth. If any other expenses show up, you'll just want to consider those as well. So if you have these costs, write those down before the event. Just have that in mind. Like, okay, I have spent X amount, $2,000. This is a random number out of my butt, but $2,000 prepping for this and getting ready for this event. So I need to make more than $2,000 in order for this to be worth it, right? And ideally, if you make $2,001, it probably means it was not worth it. It probably wasn't worth your time. So that's kind of the hard truth of that. It's like, oh, like, you have to like actually be in the positive and think you're going to be there. So how do you assess if this is going to be your first convention? How do you know if this is going to be profitable or not? I did not do this, and so this was one of my mistakes. Don't go into a convention, don't sign up for a convention, and then think, okay, now what merchandise should I sell at this convention? That's kind of backwards, and that's what I did. Excuse me. I, at my first Comic-Con in Denver, got accepted, and was like, okay, now I need to create a bunch of merchandise for this, as opposed to any other business already has a business plan in place. They already have their merch, and they're like, okay, I already have all this stuff. Now how can I sell it? And that's kind of the way to go. So if you have no merchandise, if you have nothing to sell, and you are thinking, oh, I'm just gonna apply to this Comic-Con, and if I get accepted, create a bunch of stuff, it probably won't go well, because none of that stuff's been market tested. You don't know if any of that stuff sells well or not. You don't know what works at that specific convention, and you're gonna probably go, and you have to spend money on all that stuff, and then you'll probably go in the hole, like you won't make money. And so my recommendation, which I have started to do, is like, now I have merchandise. All this merchandise I've had for a long time, and it's stuff I'm trying to get rid of, right? And so I'm trying to sell. And so the majority of the stuff, I don't have to print almost anything for this event I'm doing, which which is awesome. And so if you already have merchandise that you're trying to sell, then maybe a market or a convention is the way to go. Second, how much does the booth cost, right? Something like San Diego Comic-Con, where the booth is thousands of dollars, I will never do. One, I don't live in California, so that's another cost, but also it's like, I've never come close to making enough money to cover that kind of cost. And so I know that about my business. I know what sells, what doesn't sell, and how much I can make. And I know I can't make that much at the moment where my business is at. And so if you think, well, just think about it. Like you might have a business you have a lot of books, you have a lot of stickers, prints, you have a lot of merch already in place, and you do well, and you know that your products sell well. Then San Diego Comic-Con might be a place for you. One of those bigger, more expensive booths may be fine. That might actually be good for you because it puts your stuff in front of more eyes, right? And so that's a good thing to just keep in mind. What are the costs of tabling? Then you want to think about travel costs. How much does it cost to get to this convention? I have now I only table at local events or events I can drive to. If I fly somewhere or if I need to get a hotel, I'm not going to be able to cover that cost either. And so I'm just like, okay, keep it local, somewhere I can drive. I know people that do San Diego Comic-Con, but they do it because they live in California and they have family that lives in California, so they can just stay with their family. They can just drive down, and that saves them a lot of cost. So yeah, don't spend a lot of money on travel if you don't think you can cover that cost also. And then you just got to think of the little things. Food, things like tape and stuff that you may end up buying, or little things that may come up at the convention. Just be ready for all of that. In general, my mindset now is I only do local ones. I'm not going to be doing big Comic-Cons until I have like a lot of merch or a lot of comics actually printed. For this one, I actually did have the first chapter of my comic printed, which I'm super excited about. But that was only because it's my first chapter of this comic, and I thought it'd just be something cool to see it physically. It wasn't necessarily for this event, though that's where it's going to launch, I guess. But everything else I've already had, I've already owned. So yeah, me just getting rid of stuff. What else? You also want to consider opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is basically, okay, I am doing this convention for 2 days. Let's say 2 days. That means you're not doing something else for those 2 days. You're sitting at this table for 2 days selling your stuff, but that means you're not getting to work on your comic. You're having to say no to other jobs that you could potentially be doing. So what is the opportunity cost of that time, but also the prep time leading up to the convention, and then the recovery time after the convention. A lot of times, bigger conventions like that, I am wiped. Even smaller markets like this, that's going to be like 4 hours. I'm done for the rest of the day. I probably don't do anything the next day either. And so, yeah, you're just tired, and then there's also a lot of just time spent getting ready. Like this is Thursday, right? And it is Thursday, and then 2 days from now is the convention, and I'm spending time prepping. So I'm trying to multitask here, so hopefully I get, a little more out of my time. But you can see I'm moving slowly. So you want to consider, if I am going to be at this convention for 2, 3, 4 days sometimes, that means I am not going to be working on my comic. I'm not going to be putting out stuff on social media, like in terms of like actual comic content. I'm not going to be able to say yes to a freelance job that may come up during that time. And so you are losing, hypothetically, that money. So just consider that. I think for a majority of people starting out, a convention, a comic convention is probably not the way to go. I don't think it was the way to go for me when I started. If I went back, I would not have done it. I should not have done it. I think it was a learning experience though. So there's always like, I don't ever really regret anything because it's like, oh, like I learned something from it and I'm better for it, right? But I think going back, I should have waited until I had market tested products. I should have waited till I had products that I'd already started selling. I probably would suggest for beginners trying to sell online first and see what works and what doesn't work, what connects with your audience. I've started using print-on-demand sites to really help. I use Printful, Printful, which has been really nice. Though my sales aren't like amazing, they take care of shipping, they take care of manufacturing the product, and you can set your own prices. A lot of times that's not the case, but here you can set your own prices, which is nice, and so you get to determine what your profit is, kind of, and so that's super nice. And so I think that's kind of the way to start out, and then you will see, okay, these things are selling really well online. Let me now find a way to print those myself instead of through a print-on-demand site, and then these are the items that I will actually take to a convention or market. Also, the market I am doing, the cost is $40 a table, right? So it's super cheap. And so that's another reason that I am doing it, because I was like, I know I'll make $40 back. Like that is not, I'm not stressed about that. So I already know going in, I'm going to make a profit. Excuse me. I had strep throat last week, and so I'm just getting over that. And so it's super, I've been very frustrated about it. What else? Let's put this over here, actually. So what are some products you could sell? What are products that you may want to test out? I think I have prints, but my prints actually do not sell well. And so I don't know if I would recommend prints anymore. I think prints are kind of dying and going away. The only reason I sell prints is because I have them and I'm trying to get rid of them, right? And then I probably will steer away from prints moving forward. But things that sell really well are stickers. Stickers sell super well because they're cheap, $3. You can sell them for $3 or $4. A kid may have that with their allowance, stuff like that, and so people don't feel like they're spending too much money if it's a sticker. So a sticker is always good to have, and the cost of a sticker, depending on how many you're getting printed. I don't print a crazy amount, so my cost per unit is probably $1, so I make like $2 profit, right? But ideally, you want to make 5 times cost is what I would recommend on an item. And so some of these things I do make 5 times cost, some of the things I don't, just because I was starting out when I had some of these printed, and so I wasn't thinking that way. But if I were you at this point, try to go 5 times cost. So print enough so that you can, like, if you want your stickers to sell for $3, you want the cost of each one to be 60 cents, right? So that's one thing. So pins are hot right now. It's crazy how people are willing to spend pins. Pins aren't for, like, I don't get it. Like, I don't collect pins. I don't collect pins, and it's just not something that, like, I've ever been into. But people have their backpacks covered with pins. They have them, like, they have cork boards where they stick pins in their homes and stuff. And so pins are really popular. Even, like, if you go to Disneyland or Disney World, they have this whole pin collector thing where you can trade pins with Disney, which is really cool. So yeah, I think pins work really well, and you can mark those up really well. Like, my pins, I was able to get for $2 per pin, and you can sell them easily for $10 to $12. And so pins are really good. If you have a comic, obviously that's kind of like what we're here for, to market our comic, to share a comic with people, and so try to sell that. I think don't go with the mindset that you are going to try to sell your comic this as the same price as how Marvel or DC sells their comics, right? Because you won't be able to make a profit that way. Marvel and DC sell or print their comics hundreds of thousands at a time, so each comic to them costs probably less than a penny. So for us, we can't print at that volume, and so I still recommend 3 to 5 times cost there. So the more you print, obviously, it's easier to hit that. My comic this time is only going to be 3 times cost because I don't want to overcharge people. But you could play with it. Just depends on how long your comic is and things like that. So I leave that up to you. But again, 3 to 5 times cost. But just know that, like, if you try to match the big two, that doesn't work for independent artists like us. So comics, I've started doing greeting cards as well. I do greeting cards and mini prints. Greeting cards do well, and I try to keep them relevant. And so if I had a greeting card for, like, Mother's Day, because one event I did, right, I think it was the weekend of Mother's Day, and I was able to sell out of those by this point, which was really cool. I have, like, thank you cards, birthday cards, things that, like, people are always buying, and those actually, like, sell super well. So greeting cards are cool, and those are really simple to design usually, and you can make them into your own fun style, right? And it'd be unique, not just the cookie cutter, like, Hallmark cards. So that's something I recommend. Postcards, I think people are willing to buy postcards. But again, those are basically prints, and so those used to sell for me better than they do now. So maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't recommend those, actually. And then the last thing I would say is commissions. So I do commissions a little differently than a lot of people do. So some people will. There's a few ways to do it. So I know artists that will put on their social media, okay, hey, I have 10 slots open for this convention that I'm going to be at. First come, first serve, and then they'll give them, like, a pricing breakdown of, like, if it's just a headshot, if it's the half body, if it's a full body, if it's color, if it has a background or not, and have different pricing options there. So that's the way to go. Where you kind of just take your list beforehand, and you can even start working on it before you get to the convention, and have them just ready for people that are going to be there. And then what I do is something I've titled, I guess, same day sketches. So they're much more simple sketches. Let's see, I think I have an example. Like, here's, like, a little Mario I did, right? So black and white, just ink and pencil. I don't even erase the pencil. And I just charge same day sketch $20, and I say I can get them done by the end of the event if you want to come back and pick them up. And that's done really well for me, because I think people like to have that unique, one-of-a-kind item. And I think now with AI on the rise, I think people are even more excited about that kind of stuff, to know that something is handmade by a human. So that's something I recommend. But I think also even more so than the item itself, it's the experience of. So sometimes people will stick around, they'll watch me draw it for them, which I'm not always as interactive as I should be, right, and comfortable. But especially with a lot of us introverts, I think we have to like get out of our comfort zone when it comes to commissions, and people watching us, and so that's something that I find honestly is the majority of my sales are commissions. The last event I did, more than 50% of my sales came from these same day sketches, which is crazy to think. The first time I did same day sketches was at that Denver Comic Con, where the first day was a bust, and I was so stressed because I made like no money that first day, and I was like, I need to do something, and so I whipped up a sign. The next day, my wife was super encouraging because I was just super grumpy and upset, and we were like, okay, we need to do something different, and I just started sketching, and I put them. I was like $5, and they started selling really fast, and people were, I do not recommend $5, because I could have easily sold them for 10, 15, probably even $20, because that's still super cheap for a commission. So I would say at this point, don't go under 20, because they are fast, quick commissions. I do them in less than 30 minutes, and it's just more for the experience for the customer. So that's something, and also that kind of, I want to going off that, I think we as comic creators, we as like going to a convention, we need to learn, we need to be adaptable to different situations. So let's say you are at a convention, kind of like the situation I was in, where the first day, no sales, super stressed, it was my first convention, I didn't know what to do, and you're like, okay, that didn't work, what can I do on day 2, what can I change to make this a better experience, not only for me, but also for my customers, what can I do to draw people's attention, and then you pivot. You don't have to stay in the same spot for 4 days if something isn't working. And every convention market I've done, day 2 is different than day 1, and so I have to change what I'm doing. You can change pricing from day 2 to day 1. I do not recommend it. I do, but that might be more of a change from market to market as opposed to during the convention, because let's say you aren't selling super great the first few days, and then the last day you're like, okay, everything's going to go on sale, just so you can get rid of stuff and hopefully get more sales, right? And so if you do that, and if you do that multiple conventions where the last day or the last few hours things go on sale, you're conditioning your customers basically to be like, okay, I can just wait till day 3, day 4, and he's going to put everything on sale. So I don't recommend putting things on sale at the end of the convention or anything like that, because then people will just wait for that moment. I do recommend, for any convention you're going to, try to go as an attendee the year before, and just scope it out. See who's there, ask questions. Don't take up too much time from anybody, but if someone has time, kind of pick their brain, saying, hey, like, how's this convention for you? How are your sales? I mean, they probably won't share numbers, though I don't know why. I'm very transparent about my numbers, and I think we all should be. But yeah, just how's the convention going for them? Do they recommend it? And whatever other questions you have, kind of like really go there not as a fan, but as like, this is a research mission. Like, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to find out, like, and have a notepad with you and be like, okay, look at this. This is how things are set up. This is where the artist alley is. This is how much things cost. This is much blah, blah, blah. I'm not allowed to use my own electricity, this and that. And go at least the year before, and scope it out before you apply for the following year. And that will give you way more information going in. You'll be way more prepared. I did not do that. And that's why I don't think my first convention was a success, because I didn't scope it out. I didn't go, and I went to the convention, but I didn't go in with the mindset of like, I might have a table here one day and I should like ask questions. I just went as a fan, and because of that, I wasn't as successful and I wasn't as prepared. So yeah, do that. And let me see if there's anything else. Really, the thing I want to like reiterate is that going to conventions, going to markets, and being an exhibitor, it is really like you need to go in with a business mindset. Go in like wanting to make a profit, wanting to connect with customers more so than anything else. The cherry on top of the cake is meeting with friends, making new connections, networking. That's all great, but that can be done without exhibiting as well. And so, yeah, just if you are gonna go into doing conventions and markets, just like really think it through, really think about all your costs. They're super fun. I have enjoyed them from time to time. They're not a big part of my business, and I don't intend to make them a big part of my business because they're super exhausting, and for me, the opportunity cost isn't worth it. But I'll do local ones that really get me involved in the community and get my name out there to people in Waco, where I know for sure that I'm going to at least make a profit. Yeah, that's all I got. If you have any questions below about conventions or markets, or if you have any ideas or tips or suggestions for other people, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any cool markets that you've been to that you would suggest, or any conventions that you think are really cool, leave those in the comments as well. Otherwise, just please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.